It's skycat.live. What's up, guys? Yesterday I did a 26-hour shift, and I spoke for 26 hours, and my voice is very raw, and my throat hurts. Though I don't think I'm sick because I don't feel bad, but I think I've definitely got a very sore throat from overusage and drinking vodka and smoking and all this other stuff, and doing too much streaming. So I wasn't gonna record today, but I decided that I know that I'm gonna do like a 12-hour shift, 14-hour shift, and I decided why not just record and have it be a quiet shift, you know. I wasn't gonna do it, I did stream for about 2.5 hours before I started here, but uh, I don't think I want to stop recording. I think I'm gonna record as I usually do. I realize now that I've been very consistent to do YouTube videos almost every day for 3 years or 2 years, and I don't really want to break the inconsistency, so I am going to record this session. I only lost about 2 hours and 35 minutes before I started recording, and I haven't said anything the entire 2 hours because I have a very sore throat. So I'm sorry, guys. It's a very low key, quiet day for me today. I'm going to record, and but we do want to put something on YouTube for the people. Today I'll be playing World of Warcraft SSF. Sorry, World of Warcraft Hardcore SSF and FFXI and EvE, but I'm not really playing too much FFXI or EvE. I'm just sort of sitting in the background looking at. Oh no, there's a Manticore. Oh no. Warp. Warp drive active. Oh good. Oh good. There's lots of them. Very good. I guess I'll go down the list until I find somebody. This guy jumped to the same fucking place. No, no, he didn't. We're going to. I guess I should start with the. Oh, this guy just finished, so I'm going to the small. I am playing EvE, but I won't be playing that much FFXI. I'm just. Oh, am I out of fire? No, I'm out of copper. Shit. What's that sound? Oh, no, no, I'm safe. I'm safe. Oh, silver. Nice. So I'm going to drop it off the big face here. I'm sorry, I forgot. Here we go. There we go. Sorry about the interruption, guys. You guys have been watching me stream. I'm sorry for the delay here. All Caldari, which is good. We got a Caldari push in this system. Oh. Warp drive active.
Somebody being shot or whatever in real life, it's almost impossible to do. In fact, I can think of only one scene that I watched of a movie where I really thought like, wow, that looks real, and it like disturbed me, and it was that scene in the Zodiac movie.
Yeah, I love the Zodiac movie.
The couple that are like on the picnic or whatever.
Yep.
That was like too real looking for me, and I was like, wow, that's really off-putting. And that's as somebody who's played these games, like these gory, violent games for decades. So that argument doesn't make any sense if that's the one they're using. Like, oh, we need to censor this because even adults, would have X, Y, and Z happen to them if they continually played these games that had these like edgy or dark or adult themes. I just think it makes no sense whichever way you look at it, but maybe somebody will point it out in the comments and I'll agree. We'll see. But this is definitely an example of censorship gone way too far. Something that doesn't impact me whatsoever in this specific instance, but it is a worrying trend that this is something, because developers in Japan then do have to take this into consideration. and that's altering their creative work. Because, you know, who's to say that something like this didn't happen if the next From Software game, for instance, wanted to add dismemberment or whatever in the game, which would be a really cool mechanic that I think they could explore. Who's to say there aren't games that maybe the audience, the general audience, whether it's worldwide or Japan, would really enjoy, that somebody said, oh, we can't have that in there because this board's going to reject it and we'll make way less money, so we've got to make these considerations and these cuts and basically change the product that is our vision. Anytime that's the case, when it's something that is widely accepted and I don't think is harmful in any way, it's obviously bad. So this is frankly fucking stupid, at least in my eyes. Again, maybe I'm wrong, just one person just talking into a camera incoherently. So yeah, thanks. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Let me know if this is something that's impacted any of the games that you play, and what you think regarding like whether or not they have any point. Maybe there's something I missed as to why they'd want to do this in the first place. And let me know if there's any content you want me to cover, any articles, any situations ongoing. And yeah, go buy GameStop's, link in the video description, 10% discount code. They have a big offer coming up pretty soon where you get free shipping, I'm fairly sure, as well as free samples, I believe. But I will get the graphics and everything and put it up along with the date as soon as I find out.
The only shorts it ever shows me is him. It's weird.
See you next time. Peace.
Wait. What'd you do?
That shouldn't really shock anybody, but will be probably interesting to look into. They're censoring our games. It's just what's going on. It's been happening for a long time. Some of the ways that things are censored would make sense, but this is not one of them. So we're going to go through this article real quick from VGC, videogamechronicle.com, and this is Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered, which is a terrible game name, by the way. Hella Remastered is...
Welcome back. So I have played coming up now on...
Thank you, Kira TV. I've liked the sub to your channel. Thank you, Force Gaming. I've liked the sub to your channel. Thank you for the excellent content for my stream.
Welcome back. So I have played coming up now on 50 hours of Space Marine 2. Here's my review of the game. I want to start by saying too, there's going to be no story spoilers. I'll also avoid discussing most of the like cooler campaign moments so as not to spoil those, but beyond that, I will be talking in detail about the game. I want to begin by setting the tone here for the rest of the video because so much about this game I just adore. They absolutely nailed the gameplay and the Space Marine fantasy. Like the core loop of playing this game, wading into massive hordes of enemies, tearing your way through. It's very satisfying. It's also very, very bombastic. Like there's so much crazy over-the-top action constantly happening. You'll be wading into these hordes of Tyranid, chopping and smashing your way through with bullets flying everywhere, explosions going off in the background. Off in the distance, there's gonna be streams of like literally thousands of enemies tripping over each other. The sky full of swarm clouds of flying Tyranid with the tracer rounds from anti-air fire relentlessly following their every move. And all of this is happening while you're in the thick of battle, cleaving away, performing some badass execute, tearing the limbs off a space bug and then cratering its head, and you got your mates there right around you, like raining their own terror, one of them chugging away, mowing down enemies with his LMG, while the other one is leaping through the air with a jetpack and massive hammer, slamming down into a huge pile, swinging away. It's just like non-stop action, and it is like this near constantly in so many different variations of the scenario I just laid out. This game is badass and it is a lot of fun to play. I like the combat, in fact, so much that I could just play through the same missions over and over and over again, and as it turns out, due to the game's relatively low amount of content, that's exactly what we did. We spent most of our time playing through the same handful of missions over and over and over again, and that leads me to what I think might be one of this game's biggest issues at release, and that is the amount and the variety of content available. I'm pretty sure for some people this is gonna fall way short of their expectations. While I have had a lot of fun and I've enjoyed my time with the game so far, the fact that we wrapped up the campaign in just under 6 hours as opposed to the developers projected 12, yeah, there's gonna be some people who just don't love that without question. And for as much as I've enjoyed grinding the co-op operations, leveling up my bulwark and pushing to the highest difficulty. Fact is that each run of these takes about 30 or so minutes, and there's only 6 operation levels in total. So for anyone who's only interested in playing through them 1 or 2 times, that's adding like 3 to 5 hours more of content. And then between that and the campaign, we are likely falling short of 10 hours total playtime here for some players. Now the game does also have PvP, and I'm really looking forward to it. However, I wasn't able to test that for this review window because the matchmaking servers hadn't yet been turned on. They're still not turned on as of this recording. Now I'm expecting I'm likely to get more hours worth of fun out of this for sure, but I also know, for as much as I'm interested in PvP, there are some people who just don't care at all. And these things, combined with a handful of other points of feedback, which we will get to later in the video, this all has me thinking that this could be a divisive launch. I really like the game. I've had a blast so far, and I would recommend it, but I also think people will be disappointed with the content amount and variety, because I don't expect everyone to grind the same 6 co-op missions for 40 plus hours like we have. It takes a certain kind of a personality to enjoy that kind of gameplay. So this may unfortunately be once again a situation where we have what is otherwise a great game here that is launching a little too light on its content, and it will be a much easier recommendation, say a year from now, once they've added 4 seasons worth of updates, which they already have planned with a requisite roadmap. At that point, without question, easy recommendation for just about everybody, but as it is right now, I think you're gonna have to keep all the caveats in mind. With that prefaced, let's get into the review, and starting with the overview. If you happen to miss the preview video we did last month, I'm gonna do a quick overview of the game from the top to the bottom, talking about the gameplay, the game modes, the systems and features, and then after that we will move into my impressions, what I like, what I don't like, points of feedback, and the final thoughts. Alright, starting with the gameplay here, as covered already, this is far and away the shining star of Space Marine 2. The combat is just phenomenal. The main point of comparison for me would be something like Shadow of War. It's got this action combat system where you will be in the thick of battle, totally surrounded by enemies, but you have every tool needed to manage them easily. You're going to be dealing damage with light and heavy attacks, cleaving groups, and striking single targets. There's a lot of combo chains, from spamming the same basic attack multiple times to alternating inputs with holds and pauses in between your strikes. Every single weapon in the game will have its own attack variations with different combos and combo chains that you can perform. And then there are even different weapon variations of the weapon classes, and each of these will either excel at cleave or single target damage, but most weapons will have options to do both to at least some degree. There are also attacks that can be used to break a guard or interrupt enemies who are calling for reinforcements, which is huge. As for the defense side of things, well, there are 2 main options. You've got dodge and parry, and then some classes and weapons also have a block. You can dodge pretty much any attack, but only basic attacks or those that are marked with blue indicators can be parried. Perfectly timing a dodge or a parry right before you are struck will then slow down time momentarily, and also enables a counter shot, which will not only do some damage but also restores some of your health. Then the other big thing that you want to make use of is the finishers. When an enemy is blinking red, this indicates they are low health and can be executed. Doing so will also restore some armor.
Oh, it looks good. I think this game looks good. I'm glad I bought it.
Makes you completely invulnerable to damage during the entire execute animation. Then on top of that, there are multiple grenades for you to throw out into the mix, blowing up piles of enemies. And every single class in the game, of which there are 6, has its own unique ability, which is sort of like an ultimate. These will charge in combat and give you another tool to either take out enemies or to support your team. So for example, the class that I played the most, the Bulwark, has this banner that you can slam into the ground. It will damage enemies in its vicinity while also quickly restoring armor for myself and my allies. And I eventually got a perk that made it so that it would revive any down teammates who were around it as well. Really, really powerful utility skill. And with all of this stuff combined, the gameplay just has such a nice pacing and satisfying flow to it. You're smashing through the hordes, mixing up your melee ranged and defensive moves. You'll use these big sweeping cleaves to deal with the hordes, while heavy hitting strikes are for the larger foes. At the same time, you're paying attention for any reactive maneuvers you need to make, like dodging range shots from the snipers, parrying some incoming attacks, and then counter-shotting to restore some armor in the process. Then you're executing the low health enemies, you're getting these sick animations while being invulnerable, and then straight back to it, hacking away, tossing out grenades, dodging, slashing some more, dodging, counter-shotting, heavy attacking to break some guard, parrying, counter-shotting again, perform and execute, some more slashes, counter that reinforcement calling in, things get a little hairy, toss out some more grenades, I'll slam down my banner to top off my armor and then get back to slashing. It is great. If you hadn't got the memo, combat in this game is great. Space Marine 2's campaign.
That's good.
This has you playing as Titus the Ultramarine, who after being wrongfully accused of corruption has been reinstated and accompanied now by two battle brothers who are controlled either by AI or other players if you're playing in multiplayer co-op. You are all sent out on a mission to once again defend humanity. Now in the campaign, you're going to be visiting multiple planets across several missions. Each of these areas have a distinct look, biome, structures, and set pieces you move through while you're battling a wide range of Tyrannid and Chaos Marine enemies. As mentioned, not going to spoil any of the narrative stuff here, but I would like to make note of some of the cooler things we saw and did. For one, there's just so many great world building moments throughout the whole campaign, sections where we have time to sort of take in the environment, and they've just done such a good job of executing not only on the oppressive feeling, but also the massive scale of everything in the 40k universe. Whether it's the towering structures that pierce the clouds, the seemingly never-ending waves of enemies pouring through the streets and filling up the skies, your allies and their artillery there to meet them in impressive explosive fashion, or the massive over-the-top boss battles and encounters. Many very, very cool moments we came across in the campaign. There's also in this a fair good amount of variety of enemy types, from the basic Tyrannid hordes, the run up and swarm you, the dual-wielding knights, the ranged snipers, the stealth assassins, ones that toss out landmine, bombers that chase you and explode, floaters that support and buff their allies, and then you got the Chaos Marines, or as I like to call them, the ones that explode into cosmic confetti. These had a lot of variations as well, from the basic ranged and swordsmen to the ones with LMGs, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, and missile barrages. You'll come up against several boss battles throughout the campaign, and I gotta say, every one of these I thought was quite well done. Not only were these cool looking bosses with interesting encounter and mechanic design, but every one felt unique. We really enjoyed them. And then beyond the main boss fights, there were also a few, count them 3 to be exact, mini bosses that you encounter at various intervals in the campaign. These are also found in the co-op operations as well, which we will be covering shortly. Probably some of the most fun we had during the whole campaign, though, were all the sections where we had access to our jump packs. These were limited to very particular sequences, and you would lose them once you finish that area. But each time we got to do it, it was so fun, mainly because they're just overpowered as heck. You'll launch up into the air, just floating there, and then smash down wherever you please, and absolutely cratering anything in your path. It is also just extra funny and hilarious when all 3 of you are landing almost in sequence, one after another, just slam, 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 everything's exploding. Overall, I really enjoyed the campaign. All told, though, as mentioned, it took us under 6 hours, actually 5 hours and 46 minutes to be exact. And I'll add here, we weren't burning through the content either. We were playing at a totally regular pace. We cleared every single enemy that spawned. We didn't blitz by anything. We explored all of the side areas looking for collectibles. We watched every cutscene and listened to all of the narrative exposition, of which there was a fair bit. We really did not beeline the campaign. We played it what I would consider fairly normally. I was frankly surprised with how short the campaign was, especially given the developers' 10 to 12 hour completion time estimates that we had heard. Not sure how exactly we could squeeze another 6 hours out of this experience. The campaign was short, but I did find it quite fun. Now, the real bulk of the content in this game, it seems, comes in the co-op operations. Operations are these handcrafted missions where you play as one of 6 distinct classes with up to 2 other real people, moving through levels that act as the side stories to the main campaign. So while you play through the campaign, there are moments and levels and missions in there where there is another Space Marine team going on your same mission, but with objectives in a separate nearby area. The operations are you playing as that team. It's actually a pretty cool setup. So structurally, operations remind me a ton of Warhammer 40k Darktide. They have you moving through pretty much linear levels, fighting groups of enemies that will get mixed up from run to run, with objectives to clear along the path, and occasionally side bosses that need to be dealt with. Now, there are 6 operation missions in total. Like the campaign, these take place on the few planets and in the same general areas, but they are entirely unique layouts and designs. You're not actually moving through the same exact levels and sections that you played late in the campaign, but you're in the same rough vicinity on the planets, and you will often see like overlapping points of interest or events off in the background. In fact, the entire point is that these two teams are working in tandem to complete the same objective, helping each other by doing different things in the same area. So yeah, you're moving through these levels, you're taking on hordes of either the Tyranids or the Chaos Marines, completing objectives at various intervals, managing your resources, the health and ammo, while trying to stay alive. I would consider every single level of these co-op operations extremely linear, beyond the occasional branching path that meets up like a few seconds later. However, all along the edges of these mostly linear levels, there are a few corners and alcoves branching off where you will find valuable pickups that you want to be on the lookout for. These include health kits, ammo crates, different grenade types, armor boost for getting extra pips of armor, and the Guardian relics which will let the holder self-revive upon death. Now sometimes you're just going to see these laying around on the edges, but other times they're actually going to be inside of stacks of crates that you can smash. Also, every level will have a hidden armory data and data seed. So the armory data is used as a resource to permanently upgrade your weapons, making them stronger, where the data seeds reward bonus experience if you complete the mission holding it without dying. And both of those things really incentivize exploring every single corner of the map while on an operation, because they're pretty important. There's also mini bosses. So they're the 4 difficulty tiers that I mentioned. It looks like, from what we could tell, the mini bosses only start appearing as you go to the 2nd difficulty all the way up to the 4th, and they appear to show up randomly, although there are parts of the map where they are probable to show up from what we saw. So the 3 bosses that we've seen in our 40+ hours of playtime include this Neurothrope, a giant floating squid thing, pulsates huge AoE rings, got a few range blasts where it shoots big lobs or does this sweeping beam. It can also place damaging pools on the ground that you have to avoid. The Carnifex has big melee cleaves, it shoots acid and slams the ground. It also has like a bull rush charge. And then there's the Hellbrute, which charges, has a ton of different heavy melee cleaves, slams, and ranged attacks, and from what I could tell seems to have a whole heck of a lot of health as well. And that's basically the gist of operations. Go through these levels, complete these objectives, fight these enemies, pick up the pickups, fight the mini bosses when they show up. Do all of that without using your revives and make it to the end. Mission complete. So yeah, operations are where we have spent the vast majority, the bulk of our playtime, and I would assume, besides the PvP, this will be true for other people as well. This is where most of the content is in Space Marine 2 in terms of quantity of time. You've got the 6 different operations, the 4 difficulty tiers. You start off at tier 1, you play through all 6. These take 30 to 40 minutes each on average, and then as you level up, you get experience, you progress, you're stronger. This lets you push up the difficulty, taking on the harder challenge, and progressing even further, which then brings us to the various classes and the progression systems. So as mentioned, there are 6 classes in the game. When you join an operation, you will pick one of the 6 to play as. You've got the Tactical, who has a scan ability that reveals enemies and makes them take more damage. You've got the Assault class, who has a jump pack, which grants increased mobility for powerful slams. You've got the Vanguard with a grapnel launcher. He can hook and propel towards enemies. The Bulwark is like the tank. He's got a chapter banner that you place on the ground. It restores armor to all squad members in the area, and then it can get upgrades that do things like damage enemies, increase missing health, and then also revive downed enemies. And his big thing is that he carries this massive shield. The Sniper, besides sniping, has a camo cloak to conceal yourself and sneak around. And then you've got the Heavy class, who has this Iron Halo ability, creating a powerful barrier blocking all range damage in front of them, and they just deal a heck of a lot of range weapon damage, which is nice because they have no melee weapon options. So those are the 6 classes, no repeats allowed, so you can't have 2 Bulwarks, for example. And progressing through the game is all about picking the class and the weapon combinations you have access to that you like, and then leveling those up to make them stronger and push into those higher tier difficulties. Now for the rest of progression and customization, it comes in a few forms. For one, there's a perk tree. So every class has its own perk tree. As you level up, you unlock new perks with each level, with 24 in total, and then that tree is divided into 4 subsections. There are the core skills, all around defensive and offensive enhancements. Team skills, as they imply, are going to give buffs to your whole team. The gear skills will enhance your class's unique weapons or ability, which is basically that ultimate. And then you've got the signature skills. These are very powerful buffs at the end of the tree, which are just some really strong things. I've got a couple that makes it so that if my armor depletes, I'll drop a grenade for free. If I get a perfect parry, it will incapacitate even elite enemies. Or I've got one that makes it so that if I have any remaining armor, I cannot be interrupted or staggered, which is very strong. So as you level, you will unlock the perks horizontally across across the tree, starting in that top row and then moving to the middle and bottom row. Eventually, at max level 25, you have everything unlocked, and then you can pick one from each of the vertical rows within each of the categories. Then there's also weapon progression. You gain experience as you use your weapons on the mission. This levels them up, and you've got a few upgrades. There are multiple versions of each weapon. You start with the standard one, and then that can be upgraded to Mastercraft, Artificer, and eventually Relic. Each tier of these also have multiple options within them, and then there's also a weapon perk tree with 2 paths for you to choose from. Some have overlapping areas you can swap back and forth, but each one of those trees will have various additional enhancements improving your weapon. And then of course there are cosmetics. You start with a few default colors as like a base outfit, but then there's tons of unlocks rewarded via playing the game, and you're able to customize everything from the emblem and colors on your helm, pauldrons, breastplate, war gear, gauntlets, and greaves, as well as various adornments you can have on all of that. Weapons will also have cosmetic appearances. These are tied to the look of any weapon upgrade that you've unlocked thus far. And then finally, the game has PvP. This is 6 vs 6 competitive multiplayer with 3 available game modes. There's Annihilation, which is a team deathmatch. Each takedown earns your team a point. First team to 50 wins. Seize Ground is Domination, where you complete for control of a zone that moves around the map. Throughout the match, you reach the point limit for your team, you win. And then Control and Capture is like that, but it's King of the Hill style with 3 zones in designated areas. And all of this sounds great, especially with how good the combat is in the game. I'm really looking forward to playing it. Unfortunately, we cannot play a single match of PvP during this review window. That's because the matchmaking servers weren't available. There was no way of testing this mode for making this review, which is a huge bummer because this is probably the thing that I was looking forward to the most, even more than the co-op operations. I was really looking forward to PvP,
and there's PvP,
and it could offer a ton of additional playtime. I'm thinking it will, but if there's major issues, it could also suck. No clue as of this recording. We will find out in the coming days post this review going live and the game officially releasing. I am of course hoping for the best. Okay, so that is the overview of the game. That's pretty much everything you need to know about it. Let's go now into my thoughts and impressions, the likes and dislikes, and the feedback that I have. So starting with the likes, I don't know if you got the memo, but the gameplay, it's really good. Combat, 10 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. The whole combination of mowing through smaller mobs, clashing with bigger enemies, coupled with the well-timed dodges and perfect counters, it just never gets boring. I think countering in particular feels incredible. Like one of our favorites is when a small enemy jumps at you, you catch them by the head and headbutt them, and then they explode into smithereens, and there's so many like this. A lot of the finisher animations are really fantastic as well, kind of just like this over-the-top deletion of these enemies. Yeah, moment-to-moment combat is what makes this game great, and there aren't many games that do it as well as this.
Good.
Just absolutely fantastic. Speaking of which, the jetpack gameplay portions of the campaign, 11 out of 10. Super fun stuff. Like the 3 of us flying around and smashing down, obliterating enemies in massive craters, so very good. Also, man, the world building is on point. I would say kind of similar to how Darktide did last year. The tone of this is just so well done, but I even think it's even better because it's on a much more massive scale with different planets and those huge swarms of enemies and all the stuff going on in the background and all around you. Between the visuals, the sounds, the set pieces, it's just amazing pretty much from start to finish. It really delivers exactly the kind of feel I want when exploring something set in the 40k universe. Love the world building. Also, as I mentioned, just in general, like I feel like they nailed this Space Marine fantasy. You are this lumbering bringer of death, stomping through levels, yeeting everything in your path into another dimension. On top of the fact that all around you, there's also so much of this bombastic, over-the-top, crazy stuff happening. Just playing this game, it feels like the personification of death metal music, basically. Speaking of which, they've got just some super, really cool, badass moments in the campaign. Really good set pieces, explosion-laden happenings all over the place, with a touch of humor thanks to the often ridiculous commentary from your Space Marine trio. There was actually one point in the campaign where the group of us split up, with one person had to go down this path and we were on a bridge above them. We had to fight through our own stuff but also support them while they were down there. Unfortunately, there was only one of those moments in the whole 6-ish hour campaign, and I would have loved more because it was a really cool dynamic with us dealing with our own stuff but also helping our buddy who was all alone, but we could still see and support. Finally, in terms of the really good stuff, performance was fantastic for me. In fact, I only recall like 1 or 2 moments where there was ever any hitching. It was almost entirely smooth from the beginning to the end with all of the time that I played. Now, I will caveat that by saying, yes, I've got a fairly beefy rig. I've got an RTX 4090, an i9 14900K, and 64 gigs of RAM, so I don't know what it's going to run.
I've got 64 gigs of RAM, 4.7 gigahertz, and a 4060 Ti. I'm sitting pretty.
Like, and mid-tier systems, on lower-tier systems, on consoles.
But You know, but I'll have to sit 4060 Ti probably for 5 years though. But that's okay. I'll save up for another card over 5 years. And then I'll go to 5060 Ti. Never 4090. Like I'm lower class, so I've always got to sit like 5 generations lower. It's so annoying. Not 5 generations, but 5 cards lower. Like if the current is 4090, I'm sitting 4060 Ti. Is what I'm saying.
I'm not sure, but for me, the performance was good. Liam apparently crashed a few times. We did want to make note of that as well. He had a couple of crashes. Okay, now on to the dislikes. While overall I really like the game, I think that's come through. I've had a blast playing. There are a fair few points of feedback, critique with some feedback following up. Okay, more game, please. I just want more game to play. The campaign is so short in under 6 hours. The fact that most of the replayability comes from the co-op operation missions is fine. I've enjoyed it, and the PvP I'm assuming I'm going to enjoy as well. There just should be more. Only 6 co-op missions is very light, and the fact that they're adding additional modes like a horde mode late into 2025, that should have been here at launch. I would have loved it at launch. Like, the gameplay is amazing. I'd love to be doing more of it in a larger variety of situations. I think a year from now, like when, say, the game has 12 missions instead of 6 and more modes, which they do have planned, it's gonna feel a lot better. But right now, yes, it feels quite content light despite the fact that I played for over 40 hours. I've done that because I'm a crazy person, you understand? Multiplayer class progression. This seems unnecessarily slow at the moment. While this is sort of similar to the prior complaint, it's a separate issue than the lack of content variety, because longer leveling grinding doesn't equal variety. It took us roughly 30 hours to cap out a single class. So that means reaching the max level of 25 and getting to that final tier of weapon unlocks, the relic yellow weapons, and unlocking all of them in the tier. That took us about 30 hours each. I think it just would have been more enjoyable if they cut that time, say maybe cut it in half, so that within a 30-hour window you could level up 2 classes instead of just 1. After over 30 hours running the same 6 co-op missions over and over and over and over again, I don't really feel like leveling another class, you know what I mean? If there was more variety of missions, maybe I would feel differently about that, but 30 hours to get 1 class to max level, it just feels a little too long. It would have been great to have 2 classes, or even 1.5 classes leveled up after 30 hours of grinding that. Also, for as good as the combat feels, it has one glaring issue, and that is that the parrying feels a little inconsistent. So on the smaller enemies, basically whenever they have a parry attack coming in, you'll see the blue counter icon appear, and if you hit parry right away, it will successfully counter and smash them, and you get the benefits of that. However, for the larger enemies, hitting parry right when that same icon appears actually won't counter. You actually have to wait until the enemy is physically striking, so you got to be looking at them, and this is an inconsistency across enemy types using the same blue counter icon. It's just kind of confusing, especially when the enemies are all grouped up, and so you're not sure which of the enemies that blue counterable attack icon is popping up for, and so your timing could be completely off depending on if it's a small one or a big one. Using the parry just felt so unreliable and inconsistent that we basically just ended up spamming dodge roll instead, because you get the same perfect counter if you perfectly time a dodge, but even if the timing isn't perfect, at least you still dodge the damage rather than standing there with a failed parry and then getting hit because you're stuck in that parry animation. I also have a few campaign specific points of feedback. There were several occasions in the campaign where we had these really cool moments that were entirely cinematic, and this would have been so preferable to be playing them. So one great example is there was this point where we were marching into what is basically like death march. Coming up with our tanks, we had other space marines around us, there was massive hordes of enemies pouring in from all over the place, and this greater demon thing standing in the middle. The action of going on this march into this horde of enemies with the huge one in the background, they just showed it in the cinematic, like pew pew shooting. It's like we would have just rather been playing that. It would have been so much cooler playing it. And there were other moments like that throughout the campaign where they decided to make a cinematic for a moment that I would have much preferred to play. I think especially considering the campaign only lasted 6 hours, I would have liked more playtime and less cinematics for those instances for that very reason. In general too, I felt like there was quite a lot of stop in the action, a lot of fading to black and heavy use of corridor walking. And while I understand this is probably used as basically hidden loading screens, it happened frequent enough that I felt like the pacing of the action in the campaign felt really slow at times, far worse than the co-op operations, which are pretty much like non-stop hecticness from the beginning to the end. There was also this strange thing where the weapons would swap between missions and at sections of the missions. So what I'm talking about is like we'd be playing through the campaign and you pick up weapons along the way and you get a weapon you want. Say I got like a bolt rifle with a grenade launcher. Awesome, having a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden it would hit a cutscene, but the cutscene would be like you talking to your friends, and then that would end and you would still be in the same area, but all of a sudden you would have different weapons. Like they just randomly removed your weapons and put new ones in your hands, even when it didn't make sense. It's not that time had passed and there was a situation where it made sense that we swapped weapons. This happened frequently enough that it was really, really strange and really off-putting. And I do have one final point of feedback: an FOV slider. For the love of God, please, especially playing on PC, sitting so relatively close to the monitor compared to if I was like on my couch playing on console, looking at a screen multiple feet away. It's just the FOV is so small. It's a killer at times. The fact that my guy takes up almost a fourth of the screen, it's just a bit much. I would please love an FOV slider. Okay, so all that said, final thoughts. As I've made clear, I think I really, really like the game. I just wish there was more of it here and more variety here. More co-op missions, different co-op missions, harder difficulties, maybe a longer campaign. Playing through the game moment to moment is so satisfying, but with such a brief campaign, I think the game's legs are clearly held up exclusively behind the co-op operations and the PvP. And even
See, I like that it's short. It's gonna be in and out for me because I'm playing MMOs.
Aggro.
Oh, what happened here? Oh, god damn it. What are you talking about? Nothing changed. What are you talking about? Oh my god. Start attack casting is reset targets. What? 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 Did you glitch?
Aggro.
Why? Yeah, what? Okay. Maybe you can't put slice and dice in a macro twice.
Aggro.
Uh-oh. Oh no. Why are you letting me run? Whew. How much was this? Ooh, it was good. I made so much LP today. I'm gonna make so much money. When I'm ready, I'm just gonna go buy like I don't know what I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna buy the most expensive thing on the list. Sell that. Someone else is here. There's Glente Open. Goes to the Glente Open, I guess. There. That's good. I guess you can't put slice and dice twice, is what it is. That's okay, I can always weave it in. When I start... Oops. No, this broke. Oh, look.
Aggro.
That was not what I wanted. God damn it. Oh, oops, wait. No. Can't do this. It's weird that you can't change that macro. You have the bit, but let's see if it works. See if it works.
PvP is yet to be determined because as of this recording, we've not been able to test it. And that amount is going to be 0 if you are a player who doesn't care about PvP. Now, they do have a roadmap with some great sound and stuff lined up. Before the end of this year, they're going to release Season 1, which includes a sparring arena, which sounds like dueling, as well as private PvE lobbies. And then in Season 2, also before the end of 2024, they're going to be adding new PvE missions, a 5th difficulty, a new enemy, and new pistol. And then in 2025, with Season 3, there's going to be another new PvE mission, a PvP game mode, PvP arenas, new enemies, prestige ranks, and battle barge expansions. And then comes Season 4, they're adding new enemies and weapons, and also a horde mode. And all of this sounds awesome. It just would have been awesomer if the game had launched with much, if not all of it, in place already. I think even excluding everything else, even if they had just had the horde mode available for release, that would have been a huge W and gone a long way for increasing the replayability and the variety of the gameplay experience. Considering, again, that the campaign only took us just under 6 hours, and that we would have seen every operation mission in under another 3 hours because there's 6 of them and they only last about 30 minutes each. If you are a player who's not interested in grinding those same 6 operations for another 40 plus hours like we have, that's like a sub 10-hour experience worth of content. And if you're also not interested in PvP, that's a big yikes, you know what I mean? Now, clearly, I love the gameplay so much that I wanted to keep on playing, grinding, leveling up my bulwark, and pushing into the higher difficulties. And if that sounds something that you're also gonna like, then awesome. Space Marine 2, easy recommendation from me. However, if you're just planning on doing the campaign and then running each of those co-op missions 1 or 2 times, and you're not interested in PvP, you might only be looking at like 10 to 15 hours worth of content, in which case that $60 price tag, that might be a tad too steep. cheap. As it stands, it's just the fact is your mileage can vary wildly based on all of the above factors. I think the game right now is quite fun. I like it a lot. I just also think it's clearly going to be way better 1 year from now, assuming they hit their target and release everything listed on their roadmap. While I've enjoyed my time playing the game, I would not be surprised at the same time if there's a decent number of people who are disappointed with it. The developer is just really relying heavily on players grinding the co-op operation classes and weapons to max level and then playing the PvP for a bit of time to make this feel like it's worth that price tag. If this all sounds great to you like it is for me, awesome. I think this game's totally worth it. If not though, you might want to hold off until next year. That's going to do it for our review of Space Marine 2. Thank you as always so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time.
My name is Richard, last name Burgess.
I'm a sadist. I enjoy hurting.
That's a random video to play. Oh. Shit, thank you, Jack Shepard.
People are gonna
For the excellent concert for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel.
to go away.
This face punch not fucking realize there's no stopping me from cheating.
Winners never cheat. This was Gary Newman's response to the first ban wave initiated in the history of the survival game Rust. As the founder of Rust, he was confident that in 2014, his company, Facepunch Studios, would be able to eventually eliminate cheating from their game. But now, a decade later in 2024, the war against cheats rages on. So while winners never cheat, are the cheaters starting to win? Companies across the globe such as Easy Anti-Cheat, BattleEye, Valve, and Riot Games have put in every effort to minimize the impact of cheaters, but it's never seemed to be enough. And now there's a new weapon being used. Originally designed to save users from encrypted viruses, is now being used to compromise games and their player bases. Direct Memory Access, or better known as DMA, a device that can operate outside of the view of a majority of anti-cheat measures. A device many feel will ruin multiplayer games entirely. And while developers scramble to find solutions, the Chinese have entered the playing field in scaling the manufacturing capabilities of DMA to new levels never seen before. And with the sales of Russian cheating software and accounts soaring, this has everyone wondering if we can truly ever eliminate cheating. Will players ever be able to enjoy the games they've invested their time and money into? Or are we victims of a system we ultimately created? This is the cheat that is killing Rust. And so where does this all begin? Well, it begins with a game of any kind. A developer or game studio wants to make something fun, and so with that, a game is created. For Facepunch Studios in 2014,
45,000 LP.
Cheating has always been a common practice in gaming, and Gary Newman, having already experienced commercial success with Gary's Mod, knew that cheating was just around the corner, and Rust seemed very promising. The war on cheats begins with what we call the flooding period. During this time, whether out of malicious intent or general curiosity, developers and players attempt to exploit a new game's systems. While some enjoy the satisfaction of breaking the rules, others wait on the sidelines, looking for ways to monetize their exploits. While there's 1,000 different ways to cheat in a game, the most common cheats seen are usually the following: extrasensory perception, also known as ESP, aimbot for perfect accuracy, and movement cheats, such as speed hacking, spider-manning, and super jumping. A few players with these advantages might have minimal impact on the average player's experience, but the real issue arises with the concept of mob mentality. If a player is repeatedly killed by a cheater, they may be tempted to start cheating themselves, which leads to a vicious cycle of mass cheating adoption. In response to this wave of cheating, Gary Newman, a developer himself, initiated their first anti-cheat measure, known as Cheat Punch. Cheat Punch was never a permanent solution. It had a positive effect on Rust, banning over 4,500 players from their new 50,000 strong player base. Unfortunately, Facepunch Studios was a small team and lacked the resources to continue their war on cheats while keeping pace with Rust's development. As time went on, Cheat Punch failed to stop cheaters, leading to a dramatic decline in Rust player base. With only 6,000 players remaining, in December of 2014, all hope seemed lost. But what many didn't know at the time was that Gary Newman had a plan to resolve the problems through a new partnership with Easy Anti-Cheat, better known as EAC. Founded in 2006, EAC allowed game studios to focus on developing their games, while they took on the challenge of combating cheaters. With the new version of experimental Rust on the rise, this partnership would provide a significant barrier to entry for cheaters, ensuring that Rust would survive. Face punch.
That's how bad these little piece of shit, fucking worthless ass little script kiddie fucking idiots who download executables and kill all the games and everything. They have no idea how really bad they are fucking killing the one thing that they can stand. They have no clue. They're just like fucking the most oblivious goddamn people I've ever even heard of. Little piece of shit 15-year-old hackers and shit on Rust and all these other idiots. Like, it's not that what they're doing is evil, it's that what they're doing to the game is evil. I don't care if you hack games. It hurts the games. I care if you hack to attack me. But honestly, I don't care if you hack. I care that it hurts the games, and the games should be respected. The games should be respected. You guys are terrible. And there's no game worth cheating for anyways. For what? What can you gain from cheating Rust? Some loot in a base that disappears in a month? What the fuck? Why? For loot that you don't even get to keep. Fucking stupid.
Aggro.
But not yet the war. EAC had successfully disrupted activities of casual cheaters, otherwise known as script kiddies, and Rust remained relatively cheat-free from 2015 to 2017. However, everyone had forgotten that seasoned hackers had been breaking into EAC for years, and it wouldn't be long before they found new ways to ruin Rust again. Rust has always been unique, and the time
Aggro.
investment it demands from its players, who often build their identities around mastering the game and its mechanics. For many, this meant mastering the AK recoil. In 2018, Rust introduced what seemed to be the final gunplay changes, sparking intense competition among players to master weapon recoil. Yet,
You know, what's the calendar? It's 9/5. Oh, it's Thursday. Shit did reset today. You know, it's the Rust Zombies wipe, and I totally fucking forgot. I will actually probably play. I just didn't want to do it while I was busy. I'll play Rust here. I'm gonna go load it. Perfect. I guess I better change the date. Ooh, yeah, maybe I better stay in WoW. Okay. And then we're going to Rust Hardcore. I'm going to say spot because there's nothing that's popped yet. Oh, wait. I am loading Rust. Space Marine coming September 9th. Wait, I hope I bought the right version. Did I buy the right version? Oh yeah, I did. I bought the right one. Yeah. Oh, 6 hours. Okay. It's 6 hours it starts. Now, why did I hear that sound? That's weird. Galancia don't like me. Yes, I'm loading Rust. I just wanted to see. Here we are. It is the new wipe, right? Yeah, I think it is. It's the new wipe. I don't know why I'm not patched, though. Stay alert. This must... oh, it's Tin Can Alarm is cool. Yeah. I guess I'll jump next door. Or, well, wait, where am I currently? I'm in, not in Nenamela? Wait, I'm in Nenamela? No, I'm in Alamo. So, yeah, jump next door and see what we can do here. See if there's something to do.
Warp drive active.
Oh, yes, the Rust. Yeah, you know, I haven't visited the Rust store in a little while. Let's do that. Limited store, Abyss hunting bow. It's $2. I've never, you know, I've had the same hunting bow skin for a long time. Bolt rifles, I don't get those on hardcore. Commando hoodie. The commando hoodie is cool. I like the hoodie. The commando hoodie is dope, yeah, but it's, how much is it? I'll go back to the item store. It's $2. This is, oh, this is the limited. Oh, this is limited, is it? Neon oil rig garage door. You know, I have never bought a garage door skin. Rainbow pony poncho looks too homosexual. Rat-a-tat-tat Thompson. It is dope, but I don't need a Thompson skin. I am inclined to buy this neon oil rig garage door because I've never bought a garage door before, so I think I probably will. Yep. Oh, the minimum, you have to buy $5. That's funny. Oh my god. Stop. Cancel, no, continue, motherfucker. This is so annoying. Alright, authorize. I can't believe how bad you just bombed me. You're so stupid. There we go. And, so... Rainbow Pony Boonie. General. Retro tool cupboard. Legacy wood. Frontier decor. Brutalist. These are so expensive. Brick. Ice King. Lumber pack. There's going to be some sort of pay to win in this pack. What is it? Oh, it's just the skins for the stone, yeah, the concrete hatchets and all that, yeah. But no, it's just a good pack of skins, but it's way too expensive. So I like the factory door because it's pay to win. I mean, that is kind of pay to win. You can let them see what's in the base, and you can see outside. It is a good item, but I mean, I don't know. I don't want to spend any more money on Rust than I have, honestly. One of the things I really value about Rust is it never did charge. After you buy it, you have it forever, and it doesn't ever cost any more money unless you want it to. I'm gonna get my microphone a little closer, so there we go. Gotta see my OBS. There we go. No, I don't want the mic in the shot. There we go. T3 toolbox. The workshop. Wow, that's... Okay, and then...
Aggro.
Hopefully he changed the map because it's too big. This map's too big. Damn it. He's gonna always use this map, and I like this map, but it's the same map every time.
Aggro.
Invest the time, turn to scripts to stay competitive. Recoil scripts, particularly auto hotkey, or AHK, became widely used. Cheating was coming back to Rust, and no one knew how to handle it. To make matters worse, Facepunch took years to officially define whether scripting was actually considered cheating, which had left the doors open for players to decide if they were willing to take the potential risk for such an advantage. When the first ban wave targeting AHK scripts were implemented by EAC, many innocent players using guitar scripts to play music were caught in the crossfire. This led to EAC reversing these bans to avoid penalizing regular players. Scripting turned out to be a much tougher issue to tackle than many had anticipated. Today, this practice is known as legit cheating, where players use scripts to gain a competitive edge, while avoiding more obvious cheats to reduce the risk of getting caught. As issues spiraled out of control into 2019, many top players and clans scripting to unprecedented levels. A Taiwanese company saw a huge opportunity in the chaos. A4 Tech, an electronics company that expanded to the United States in 2015, gained a significant edge over other mouse companies with their product, the Bloody Mouse. Widely regarded as the best device for scripting in Rust, it quickly became popular among players.
Aggro.
As 2019 drew to a close, Facepunch Studios announced a ban on the Bloody Mouse, followed by multiple bans targeting scripters. But it was already too late. Scripting had become so widespread the players who were known for their skills didn't want to lose their reputation or titles, and continued to cheat until they were banned. While EAC and Rust had tried their best to resolve the issue, another game studio was developing a new anti-cheat system, which they believed could end the problem, once and for all. In 2021, Riot Games released Valorant. Praised for its unique competitive matchmaking, the game also drew attention for its unprecedented anti-cheat system, Vanguard. Known as the most invasive anti-cheat software on the market, Vanguard effectively eliminated cheating for a short period.
I guess the wipe is late this month. Oh yeah, is it that one? Oh no, it's Thursdays. Oh no, I guess the wipe is in 8 hours. So oh good, I'll be left alone while I'm here. Cool. I still have this base for some reason. How is this not decaying? Stone, wood, metal. Oh yeah, wood. Did wood decay? Well, let's go get wood. The hell is that sound? Oh, is it the vendor? That is the vendor. Let's go see. It is the vendor. No, it's Bradley. Why is Bradley at hotel? Why is Bradley at wow, okay.
While software cheats seemed to be under control, hardware cheats emerged as the new threat. It was time for a device called DMA to serve a new purpose. But before we continue, ad time. Imagine a cheat-free experience in Rust. Will that ever be possible? Will we ever not worry about aimbot? Will there ever be a time when closeted cheaters are simply blocked out? If you're seeking a server that prioritizes fairness and fights cheaters head-on, look no further than Vanity Rust Servers. Vanity Rust Servers offers a unique experience by requiring all users to link their Discord account to their Steam before connecting via their website. This extra step creates a barrier for cheaters and allows admins to swiftly detect and remove them from the community. Enjoy the latest server features of a 1.5 times component-based loot system, a unique blueprint progression by removing the tech tree and bringing back experiments, and a new monument housing the drone marketplace at both ends of the map. Join a community where skill and strategy are valued. Please check out our Discord at discord.gg/vanity or our website, vanity.gg. Experience Rust the way it was meant to be played. Join Vanity Rust Servers today. Ad over, back to the video. To understand DMA, we first need to understand how anti-cheating software works. Let's take a look at the new anti-cheat landscape on 3 levels. At the bottom, we have Valve Anti-Cheat, better known as VAC, which operates in the user mode. Valve, the company that owns Steam, uses VAC to protect users by accessing game files and memory by searching for common cheat signatures. However, VAC does not go beyond this basic level of protection. Next, we have companies like BattleEye and Epic Games, who owns Easy Anti-Cheat, which provides a kernel-level anti-cheat solution while the game is running. The kernel is a core part of the computer's operating system that communicates with software and hardware. VAC or BattleEye can look beyond game files and memory, where they can identify if exploits are being used, making it much more difficult for players to cheat while playing Rust. Finally, we have the highest level of protection, Vanguard and Faceit Anti-Cheat. This software is the most invasive, as it uses a bootkit to access the player's computer even when the game is not running. To put it simply, if Valorant were an airport and the cheat was a smuggled drug, VAC would be like a security camera, EAC and BattleEye like metal detectors, and Faceit and Vanguard similar to guards doing a full bag check with a narcotics dog. While these measures make cheating harder, it's always still possible. Now let's focus on what cheating in Rust looks like. As you are roaming, raiding, or building a base, Rust is reading and writing to your PC's memory, which is commonly known as your RAM. This happens in what we will call the user space. Under the user level, there is the kernel space, where EAC operates to protect Rust. For most cheat applications to work, it needs to communicate with the driver and find a bypass or a weak point in the EAC software. The bypass serves as an entry point for the cheat application to run. In the case of the Vanguard anti-cheat for Valorant, the program both monitors the user mode and kernel space, similar to EAC. The big difference, however, is Vanguard will do that whether the game is running or not, making it extremely invasive for any cheating software. And while this may seem like the most effective system, and it was for a short time, something no anti-cheat company can fully control is hardware. Direct memory access, or DMA, is a technique that allows hardware components in computer systems to access system memory independently of the CPU. Think of a DMA device like plugging in a graphics card into your motherboard. While a graphics card handles rendering images, a DMA device can be used for more specialized tasks, many of which can be malicious, as a DMA card allows an attacking PC to communicate with the RAM on a hardware level, which remains invisible to Vanguard. Vanguard cannot distinguish between a legitimate Elgato capture card used for recording gameplay or a compromised DMA card with cheats for Rust. This leaves the anti-cheat software unable to fully defend its game. Historically, DMA devices have been used for good, such as IT personnel accessing computers encrypted with viruses through DMA. However, the strong measures implemented by Vanguard and other anti-cheat companies have forced cheaters to adapt to new levels of protection. While cheaters have adapted, so have anti-cheating companies. Services like Vanguard have begun to advance into better detection of DMA firmware.
Oh good. They're gonna like really crack down and actually kick these fucking piece of shit script kiddie fucking assholes off the second they do something forever. That's good. But I mean, it'll only last for a little while before they figure out something else. But I mean, like, yeah, let's punish some cheaters. I definitely agree. Oh look, I like it. It's good. Very good, very good. Now I have a garage door paint. When I make garage doors, I will. Oops. Did I chuck the can? Yeah, I think I did. anything. Oh, right mouse.
Warp drive active.
That was a seagull, a single seagull.
Aggro.
Production of hardware cheats has made the battle against cheating much more complex for many games. For a long time, it didn't make sense for Rust cheaters to invest into this expensive hardware, as scripting in Rust was difficult to detect from 2019 to 2021. But this all changed in 2022 with the combat update, which altered the recoil for every weapon. However, players who had relied on their previous advantages felt the need to adapt beyond scripts to maintain their competitive edge. This is where DMA became a significant problem. Purchasing scripts or engaging in legit cheating is relatively
Aggro.
low cost and easy to access. Using more advanced cheats like aimbots and ESP is easier to detect and more expensive for the risk of getting banned. However, with the aid of Chinese manufacturing, DMA devices have become more affordable than ever. Previously, these devices were homemade, costing over $1,000 and requiring significant hardware expertise. But with the high demand now, manufacturing capabilities have been scaled up, making it ideal for Chinese suppliers, who already dominate the electronics market, to produce these devices at a fraction of the original cost. Now, DMA is much more
Aggro.
accessible, so much in fact, you've probably been to a store that sells this device. While it may be easy to blame China manufacturers for making DMA more accessible, they only provide the hardware, unaware of how it might be used. It's ultimately the Russians who develop the software that make these cheats possible. Russia's unregulated cyberspace results in limited consequences for cyber crimes, positioning Russians at the forefront of developing cheating software. Additionally, their economy has historically provided cheaper access to games, aligning closer to the value of the Russian ruble, which supports the selling of cheap Steam accounts alongside their arsenal of cheating software. While DMA will never replace the traditional cheating market, it has become a strong alternative for long-term cheaters. So if you can't beat them, why not join them? Here's what you risk if you decide to cheat. Cheating has never been safe, and while not illegal in the Western world, cheating is a gateway to activities that are extremely
While not illegal in the Western world, how long do you think that'll last? How long do you think that'll last? Probably a couple more years, right? Well, not illegal in the Western world, right? And he makes a point of saying it. But I mean, how long till it is illegal? You know? I don't know why it isn't illegal.
cheating business, as much as they might enjoy cheating, they're here to make a profit. And what's more profitable than all your personal information? Installing any cheating application opens you up to the risk of a botnet, commonly referred to as ratting, where these cheat applications give the sellers remote access tools to your computer, allowing them to access all your information stored online. And while it may seem safer to cheat with a DMA device, these devices can also be compromised with harmful firmware. Does it really make sense purchasing expensive equipment and paying monthly subscriptions for cheating when you're putting everything at risk? In 2023, several popular Rust cheat sites were infiltrated by a gray hat hacker who uncovered disturbing details about how these sites were using their customers' information. Toolcub, a recognized developer in the cheating industry, shared his insights on the dangers of buying cheats.
These cheat providers, they don't use real encryption, they use obfuscation. So we was able to do a MySQL injection directly into this guy's database. I done like a huge deep dive and found the source code he was using and what he edited. So I sent it all to Alistair. So we found out that you could just use any user and any password as long as the hardware ID that he was looking for was correct. The thing we found with this guy is after we got into his database, he was recording people's screens and taking screenshots as well. I have to give TagKnife, which is an ex-admin of Unknown Cheats, I have to give him some credit because he's the one who pointed me to the vectors that were working because I was struggling. I gave Alistair his own login and stuff so he could log in or send it to EAC.
I'm gonna pause for a second. I'm terrible. Sorry. I'm gonna go make something to eat. I haven't actually eaten in like 2 days. You know, it's weird. I just haven't been hungry. I had an olive and some string cheese, I guess. It's not an enemy, is it?
Cheat developers don't know what the fuck they're doing, number one. Number two, they're buying off of a real
Aggro.
developer and reselling it. What the developer does is he puts a little rat in. The developer knows that the other guy's going to do this, and the other guy just puts another rat in. So there's 2 rats. The more users you get, the more power you have to attack with.
This is something that's so funny about this. By the way, yeah, like what he's saying is very true, and I always think that is kind of taken for granted, like by the cheaters, that they know the game that they're playing. But yeah, did you know that every time you use a rat, you have a rat from some other rat? Did you know? Anytime you use a rat, you have opened yourself up to another rat, like another way worse rat than you, and all of your personal data has been stolen. VPN or no, it doesn't matter.
Like distributed denial of service attacks, the ability to, you know, dump a bunch of user data that could be sold onto either companies, you know, these Indian tech support scammers and shit like that. They buy a lot. If you're generally just downloading published stuff from real people, you won't have a problem whatsoever.
If so much damage is being caused to companies, players, and even cheaters themselves, why haven't we found a solution? The challenge lies in the fact that anti-cheat development isn't taught in schools. Ironically, many current anti-cheat developers started as cheat developers. No clear career path. Recruiting skilled anti-cheat developers is difficult and very expensive. Despite the challenges faced by anti-cheating companies, Easy Anti-Cheat deserves major recognition. It has recently become...
Yeah, EAC is good, except you can't use two EAC games at the same time. You can't use two EAC games at the same time.
The most effective anti-cheat systems, especially with its new ability to detect driverless DMA firmware. EAC has also seen success with the developments of Cerberus, a tool that analyzes player statistics to identify potential cheaters. Whispers88, a well-known Rust server developer, recognized for his Vanish and Skinner plugins, shared his thoughts on the recent actions Facepunch and EAC have taken to combat cheaters.
There's no guidebook when it comes to how to deal with cheaters or hackers in Rust. Some of the noticeable changes, Facepunch did change the way that they compile the game assembly. So with IL2 CPP, it's made it a little bit harder for us devs to understand what's going on with the client code, but it's also removed the way of just being able to sort of almost drag and drop a text file into Rust and then be able to use it for cheats. Rust definitely has a younger community that can taken advantage of, so it's good to see Facepunch starting to take down some of the media that does glorify cheats. Admins have a bit of a responsibility to reduce the amount of media attention that they are giving to cheaters in their communities, and this also means not using cheaters for YouTube content and such. Past few updates more recently being potential new solutions, dynamic offsets, the changing of how player IDs are networked. With a bit more time, we'll start to understand if the solutions are effective. Right now, AI has come a bit of a buzzword, and there's definitely some developers and modders working on AI solutions at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if EAC have started working on AI-based solutions as well.
Ultimately, it's always been a game of cat and mouse. Developers ban exploits, and cheaters find ways to bypass them. This cycle runs forever, and in the real world has been seen in much worse ways. Do you remember the war on drugs?
What kind of people are we?
What do you mean, do I remember? It's happening right now. What do you mean, do I remember?
Tolerate an invisible, lawless empire.
In the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan's campaign to combat drug use led to numerous high-profile arrests, but cartels constantly adapted, and drugs never went away. So, is the war on drugs, or in our case, the war on cheats, just a lost cause? Not necessarily. As we have learned from the war on drugs, the goal is not to eliminate the problem, but to prevent the harm it causes. Drugs will always exist.
Bullshit. The drug war did nothing but harm. It didn't help us. It didn't stop a single death or anything at all.
damage they cause can be limited. Cheating has been commercialized to where it's at today for Rust because it's treated as a normal occurrence. A quick search on YouTube or TikTok reveals numerous videos promoting cheat sales for Rust,
Really?
treating it as a common thing rather than a serious issue. While policies from Discord, YouTube, and TikTok should eventually prevent the promotion of cheat sales, similar to their stance on gambling and drugs, we can already appreciate the proactive measures taken by Facepunch, who have recently collaborated with BrandShield to limit the marketing of cheats and scams within Rust. Some of you may remember Glonk from my first Rust documentary. He was an active admin who explained why he started selling cheats. What we failed to realize is that Rust is simply a small fish in a big pond. We have yet to fully investigate the business and regulations that make this such a big issue. We've only scratched the surface. So, have cheaters finally won? No, but neither have the game developers. Raising awareness of these issues is what ultimately drives them to be resolved. While the war on cheats may never truly be over, you can take comfort knowing that, whether through the efforts of administrators or game developers, as long as games are fun, people will continue playing them. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider unsubscribing. Also, make sure to check out this video next if you like my content. Until the next video, cheers.
If there's any area that scammers and con artists are known to flock to, it's finance. There's a seemingly infinite number of ways to deceive people into giving you money by promising them more of it. Get-rich-quick schemes, pyramid schemes.
Another bizarre story involving...
If
there's any...
Not Turkey Tom. Thank you, Jack Shepard. I've liked and sub to your channel. Thank you, Jay Aubrey. I've liked and sub to your channel.
Story involving former presidential candidate RFK Jr. and this one involves a whale.
It is a story you cannot make up.
This is a guy who has found himself in the middle of some unusual controversies.
The man simply could shock you.
This man is actually running for president.
A Vanity Fair report is leveling serious claims against independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
No, Kennedy, nobody has to spin anything to make this look weird.
Who says this is a boring campaign?
In an honest system, I believe that I would have won the election.
It was a crisp autumn day in Central Park when a woman by the name of Florence Slatkin made a disturbing discovery.
The discovery of a black bear by a dog walker just a few feet from Central Park's main jogging and biking was alarming and strange.
The Upper West Side resident was out walking her dog, Paco, when the two came across what appeared to be a dead bear cub sprawled out under some bushes, its head resting firmly on top of a bicycle wheel. It was a mystifying sight, considering the bike was left abandoned and bears have not been known to roam Manhattan since at least the 1600s. This happened in 2014, so the only place you could find a bear around that area would have been the Central Park Zoo, who confirmed to police that none of their animals had gone missing, which only left investigators with even more questions. An autopsy quickly confirmed it was struck and killed by a car, but there was no explanation for how the cub actually got there. As one expert told the New York Times a decade ago, bears are not going to go through a city if it's not continuous green space from wherever it came from to Central Park. It seems unlikely that the bear got lost and wandered there, concluding it must have been killed someplace else before being dumped off at the park. The most glaring question of all, though, was who could have staged such an unnecessary and depraved scene involving a deceased baby animal? Well, after a decade of speculation, we have our culprit.
And that woman in van in front of me hit a bear and killed it. A young bear. So
Attempting to get ahead of an upcoming article, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. uploaded the video to Twitter confessing to scooping up the young cub's body after the car in front of him had apparently hit and killed it. Upon pulling over, Kennedy determined the body was in such good condition, in fact, that he made plans to skin the animal and keep its meat in his freezer. After all, that's where he keeps the rest of his roadkill he collects. What an amazing treasure trove of smells that has to be. Only he wasn't exactly able to get home fast enough. After all, he was already on his way to a falconry event, couldn't miss that, and had a big, expensive dinner planned in Manhattan later that night. Before he knew it, time had gotten away from him, and he was suddenly stuck with a dead bear rotting in the back of his car shortly before he needed to catch a plane. Which, if I had to imagine, it can't be easy trying to squeeze a cadaver into an overhead bin. Kennedy needed to get rid of this thing fast, so he and his not-so-sober buddies at the time decided it would be a great little bit to stage a biking accident with the corpse. He says cyclists had apparently been receiving a lot of negative press at the time and hoped that whoever found the body would laugh and get a big kick out of it. Somehow. I mean, does anyone actually believe a bicycle could kill a bear anyway? This is the kind of prank you would expect from a group of frat kids that get kicked out of college, not a 60-year-old aristocrat and his rich friends.
We went hawking, and I had the bear in my car, and then we had a really good day, and we went late. We were catching a lot of game, and the people really loved it.
This idiot. You became an international joke so quickly. And how dare you sign up with the devil? You're of the Kennedy line. How dare you sign up with this devil? You are a bad, bad man.
We stayed late, and instead of going back to my home in Westchester, I had to go right to the city because there was a dinner at Peter Luger's Steakhouse. It went late, and I realized I couldn't go home. I had to go to the airport.
In his cinematic retelling of this fateful night, Kennedy spares us no detail. I mean, he's sitting in the kitchen with Roseanne Barr, of all people.
That's Roseanne Barr? Oh my God, why is he sitting in the kitchen with Roseanne Barr?
My pronouns are kiss my...
Describing an event that...
What?
I'm sure plenty of regular, working-class American voters won't have any trouble relating to or understanding. Scraping a dead bear carcass off the side of...
Yeah, it's cartoon character level stuff.
The road that you plan to eat only after you've allowed...
You fucking cartoon character. You're a living cartoon character. I liked you too until all the stuff showed up.
...to marinate in your sweltering hot car for 7 hours is a pretty universal...
So I had a friend... He went partying in the mountains when they were hunting, when they were like 17 or something. They were like young. They were old enough to drive, not old enough to drink. And while they were up there, they shot a deer, and they got a big old buck, and there were some teenage friends of mine, and they let the buck sit in the back of the SUV. It was an SUV, and they didn't take it out of the car for 2 days, and it fried in the sun. And when you would get in the SUV, it was the worst smell I've ever witnessed in my life. It was absolutely, it totaled the SUV, just totaled it. Now their parents had just bought them the SUV. It was a couple of brothers. And the car smelled so bad, and they were more scared of their parents finding out what they had done to the car than a car crash. Like, I guess probably their father was abusive or something. I don't know what it was, but they were terrified of their parents finding out that they had totaled this SUV by leaving a deer carcass in the back for 2 days, and the sun fried the smell into the fucking car. And I watched them try scrubbing with tomato juice and doing like deep vacuuming. We took it to the car wash, and we dumped like boiling water all over not boiling water, but hot water all over the fucking back of it. We just started scrubbing, and no matter what we could do, we could not get that fucking smell. It was the worst smell I've ever smelled in my life. It's like a fart times 1,000. It's true decay that's been there too long. And it was just disgusting. And plus the deer blood was everywhere. It was a big deer. They showed me the picture. I was worried they might have killed somebody, but no, it was a deer. They showed me. And it was like fucking, it was horrible. And so you'll never believe what they did. They couldn't stand riding in the SUV anymore. and honestly, I couldn't either. No, girls wouldn't get in the SUV. It had become a problem, but they couldn't tell their parents, and they were from Centennial. They weren't rich, but they were upwardsly mobile. I think his father was probably making somewhere around like 300 grand a year, I think. And so how did they get out of this mess, right? They took the highway at 100 miles an hour, and they rolled the SUV off of this. I mean, these are the kind of crazy things that we used to do when we were a kid. They rolled the SUV on purpose off of the off-ramp at I'll never forget where, because the wreckage existed there for 3 years too. And these were friends of mine too. And it's right in my neighborhood, right? They live in Centennial, so they don't care about wrecking downtown Denver. They didn't care about wrecking the overpass or the signs or the guardrail or anything like that. And so they didn't do it in Centennial. They did it in Denver, just like 6 blocks down from where I live. Well, it's like 12 blocks, And I'll never forget, he fucking rolled it with his brother. They had gear on. They had helmets, and they were wearing like hockey pads, and they were like geared up for it, you know? They were geared up for it. And they rolled the SUV, and they were okay. They didn't have any broken bones because they were expecting the impact, and they were expecting the fucking problem. And I was one of the only people they ever actually admitted the truth to. But they're like, they didn't even tell their friends about this. It was such a fucking big secret. They rolled this SUV. And I'll never forget this. It's one of the funnier stories I probably know. They rolled the SUV on purpose, going something like 45 miles an hour. They took it a little slower. They didn't hit it, like they ran 100 on the highway, but then at the off ramp he choked out and he lowered down to like 50, and he rolled the car off of the off ramp. He busted the guardrail and then jerked and rolled the goddamn car. They were crazy. They were crazy kids from Centennial. They were good friends of mine. One of them lived with me for 7 years, but they were good kids. I wouldn't say they were good kids. They were good people, but they weren't good kids. So the younger brother is tasked with taking all of the hockey pads in a trash bag to a dumpster that's over between they told me the story. They told me everything they did. They knew that the cops would see that they were geared up for an accident, so they had the younger brother run a trash bag of all of their hockey gear to a fucking dumpster that they recovered later. Yeah, and I went with them to recover it. They had me drive them. They had me drive them to go get the fucking dumpster bag. It was hilarious. And there was like $600 worth of hockey gear in there. It was insane. It was funny, like hockey gear and padding and shit. And there was like 4 hoodies, and they were all like $60 a piece. They layered hoodies over. And then like in the middle of the summer, they donned like 2 winter jackets each and hockey pads and gloves and like padded up and fucking rolled the SUV because they were more scared of what their father was going to do to them when they found out that they were so lazy as to leave the deer corpse in the back of the SUV. And the car was totaled. Nobody was ever going to be able to drive it again. It was totaled. It was totaled before they ever did any damage to it. You couldn't have driven that car ever again. It was the nastiest smell I've ever experienced in my life. It still is. 40 years later, it was still the worst smell. It's the worst smell that I ever remember. Like, you get in the car, and they were like, we have to like hold our nose while we're driving and stuff. Yeah, it was like that. It was like I hold my nose while I'm driving to get from home to school, and when I get to school I have to like scrub the smell off of me and change my clothes and shit. And they made it like 2 days like that before they had to get a better resolution. You know, they made it like 2 days like that before they were like, we can't even drive to school anymore. It's literally unbearable. The smell is unbearable. We can't get in the car without oxygen masks and like gas masks. You know, it was so gross. And they were like driving to school with a gas mask, and it's insane. They didn't live that far, but yeah. So they roll the car. The younger brother runs all the hockey pads and all the gear they use to protect themselves from the impact. And I took them back later that day to go get the bag and stuff. I can't believe how crazy they were. And then they went back to the SUV. Well, I mean, the bigger brother calls 911. The younger brother is running to the dumpster. The bigger brother calls 911, and they're like, "We've been in a terrible accident. We've been in a terrible accident." The cops come, and they're like, "Oh, you rolled off. You're not inebriated. It's okay. Your SUV probably had some kind of problem or something, and they just chalk it up as a fucking accident. He rolled the SUV on purpose, and this totally totaled the fucking SUV. It didn't crunch the roof in, luckily, but he definitely totaled the side and bent the fucking wheels in, knocked it over and rolled it, and it didn't crunch it in on them, thank God. They were so dumb to do it, but they were also just crazy. They were like crazy. They were like high and crazy. And so the cops find out that the deer blood is in the car. They have to investigate what all the blood in the back seat is. And they have to tell the story. And they got in so much trouble. It took them like 5 years to get out of it. They got in so much trouble. When the cops figured out what they did, the cops figured out, because in the end they couldn't hide the fact that the car smelled so bad. Like, the cop leaned in and he's like, "What is that smell?" You know, when they were investigating the damage on the truck and stuff, an insurance an insurance adjuster, I think, came and all this stuff, and they're like, "What is the smell, boys?" And they were like, "Well, yeah, we kind of hit it. We shot a deer, and then we left it in the back while we partied for 2 days in the mountains, and it stunk up the car so bad." they had to confess that they rolled a car on purpose. And because they were delinquents and juveniles, nothing happened to them. I don't even think they went to like juvenile hall or anything like that. But it was kind of funny because they were so young, nothing happened to them. But they rolled a fucking like $22,000 SUV on purpose. These are the sort of friends I used to have. And they got caught anyways. And I'll never forget the story. They got caught anyways because you can't hide from the smell. You don't roll an SUV to hide a smell. It's just not the proportionate response. I would rather honestly bleach the back of the car first and then restain it. I suggested that to them, and they're like, "Bleach is worse than this smell. We can't put bleach in the car. We'll die. You know, we can't breathe bleach fumes." And I was like, "I wasn't talking about breathing bleach fumes. I think you should scrub the back of the car with bleach and then fucking repaint it the color of the upholstery." And they were like, "Do you know how much money and time that's going to take?" And I was like, "Yeah, but and I don't even think the bleach is going to fix it. It's only going to make the car smell like bleach, you know? Then the car will stink like bleach. It'll make you sick. It'll be bleach fumes and stuff. You can scrub it as much as you want. It's not really going to if you dump enough bleach on this smell, you won't be able to get you're essentially just replacing one smell with like a death smell with a chemical smell, and the death smell probably won't kill you, but the bleach smell will. If you just inhale the bleach for hours, you're gonna get sick. We came up with all of these crazy like fucking ideas on how to get out of it, you know. And their solution, they sat and thought about it for 2 days, and their solution was to roll the car, hide the evidence, and assume that nobody's going to smell the car. But no, you totaled the cars, so the adjuster and the cops fucking smelled what was in the car. They saw the blood stains from the fucking deer, and they got caught red-handed. It was so dumb. They got fucking screwed. They couldn't come party for like 5 years. I had to chaperone them and stuff. They got in so much trouble over that. Their parents were fucking pissed for 4 years. Something like that. They weren't allowed to like come out for a while.
It is pretty fun to play around with the decaying animal remains if your last name happens to be Dahmer.
I remember specifically saying, well shit, when you decided to roll the car, you should have called me. I probably would have come with you. And they were like, "No, what if we killed you?" I was like, "Yeah." Yeah, I was like, when you decided to roll the car, you should have called me. I would have volunteered to come with you guys. And they were like, "No, it just adds another factor. You could have died or something." I was like, "Yeah." and then they blame us for murder or like involuntary manslaughter or something, right? They knew what they were doing was so difficult, but they also wanted to be in a car crash on purpose. And I didn't, God damn it, I just still, it's a funny story. That's my friend R and P, and they're fucking hilarious.
Taking the opportunity to pose for a cute.
That looks like a really fucking weird picture.
Little photo with his finger in its mouth that I'm not going to risk showing you here.
Why? Why is the bear being blanked out? Why is the bear blanked out?
for obvious reasons. If nothing.
What? No, it's not obvious. Why is the bear blanked
No,
out? What is the bear? Is the bear naked? Is it giving him a blowjob? Why is that bear censored? Is it a trademarked bear? Can you not show the bear without pissing off a corporation? Why is the bear censored in that picture? It's very weird. It's like, I guess it's court evidence, maybe. That might be why. If it's court evidence, it makes sense, and it's been like redacted.
This story.
This bizarre fucking story is so hilarious. My mother told me this story, and we were just like cracking up. She gives me a glass of wine. You know, that sounds good. I think I'll go have a glass of wine, actually. Oh no, I didn't crack my box, did I? I didn't refrigerate my wine, but that's okay. I'll be right back. What's this? What is this? It's not a player, is it? Oops, I am kind of far over. Excuse me. Dinner was good. Eating was good. We're good, right? Yeah, we're good. So what else here? We don't have any more. No. So I'm gonna just safe up here for a little while. Oh. Am I out of fire? Yeah, I'm out of fire. And I gotta send ingots.
Themed teddy bears he's been selling on his website since April. It's pretty rare that you have a situation come full circle like this. When Tatiana Schlossberg wrote this initial article for the Times back on October 7th, 2014, my 15th birthday, I doubt she could have imagined the culprit to be her own cousin. Yeah, the person who broke this story 10 years ago is JFK's granddaughter. These people are related. The Kennedys are everywhere, which might be unfortunate for bears, but that also means the country at large has been unable to escape this man's absolutely ripped physique for the duration of a campaign that has proven to be nothing short of an absolute trip. If you've been paying any attention at all to this unprecedented, at times horrifying ride of an election cycle, then you're probably already somewhat familiar with RFK Jr.'s shenanigans, let's call them. These shenanigans are of course known to include, but are not limited to, 9/11 trutherism, linking school shootings to antidepressants, asserting Wi-Fi is connected to cancer, being accused of sexual assault and eating a dog but only denying the eating a dog thing, having literal worms in his brain, and spreading so much misinformation on vaccines that he has since been associated with a fatal measles outbreak on the island of Samoa. With all of this combined, it's no wonder he's been the subject of so many bizarre headlines. For the most part, RFK Jr. is like a weird specter looming in the background of a nasty showdown that sees Donald Trump and Kamala Harris at its center. Above everything else, we know that whoever takes the White House this November, it will not be RFK Jr. But with the numbers he's managed to pull, which are actually impressive for a third-party candidate, or at least that was the case for a little while before he dropped out and endorsed Trump. But because he'll be remaining on the ballot in so many states, it's hard for me to say his presence won't bear any consequence on the electoral outcome whatsoever, pun very much intended. And I think because of this, along with his shameless attempts to weasel his way into the cabinet of whoever wins, it's worth taking a closer look at his policies and background. And I can promise you that after countless painstaking hours of research that have included watching him spew randomized buzzwords at Joe Rogan for a prolonged period of time and in seemingly no particular order,
Wi-Fi radiation does all kinds of bad things, including causing cancer.
Wi-Fi radiation causes
from your cell phone. I mean, there's cell phone tumors. Wi-Fi radiation opens up your blood-brain barrier, and so all these toxins that are in your body can now go into your brain.
How does Wi-Fi radiation open up your blood-brain barrier?
Yeah, now you're going beyond my expertise.
Kennedy is even more of an enigma than I had originally thought. Such an unusual trajectory, though, might lend itself to the fact that he's lived a life that is far from normal. Kennedy has spent his entire 70 years on this planet in the limelight because because, well, he's a f***ing Kennedy. His father, the Attorney General, and his uncle, the President, were only slightly important people. Even today, the Kennedys are seen as American royalty. RFK Jr. descends from a long line of political leaders spanning as far back as the early 1900s. And with that extensive lineage comes a lot of notoriety. This is a family wrought by scandal after scandal, tragedy after tragedy. Entire articles have been compiled online documenting their long history of untimely deaths and calamities. There's even a term for this phenomenon, the Kennedy curse, coined shortly after then-Senator Ted Kennedy drove his Oldsmobile off a bridge, plunged into a river, and killed a secretary, effectively tanking his chances of ever winning the presidency when it was revealed he waited 10 hours to report the young woman's death to authorities. When you look back at the Camelot mythos, you find no shortage of controversy.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys!
But that hasn't stopped them from pursuing careers in public service right up to the modern era. Take, for example, JFK's only grandson, Jack Schlossberg, a 31-year-old Harvard graduate who currently works as the sole political correspondent for Vogue, in between singing along to Charlie XCX on TikTok. My favorite thing about Jack Schlossberg is anytime he tries to talk about serious political issues, which is, you know, his job, the comment section is just filled to the brim with whatever you say, beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I told my parents about us. No one actually cares what he's saying. They just want to look at his face and hear him do goofy voices.
The devil you know is heaps better than the devil you don't know.
Imagine if you could go back in time and tell the 35th president of the United States that in the year 2024, his only grandson has carried on the family legacy by doing this.
Everybody get down if you feel me. Put your hands up to the ceiling. Everybody get down if you...
Yeah, but their parents were like this too. Their parents were like this too. There just wasn't cameras.
Feel me, put your hands up to the...
There just wasn't cameras, so we think of them as more dignified. But had the cameras been on them all the time, like the cell phone cameras are now, we would know that their generation is just as goofy and fucky. They definitely are. Look at Three's Company or Gilligan's Island, you'll understand. Their generation was just as silly and goofy. They just didn't have the cameras all the time. It's the only difference. We're all like this. All humans are like this. It's dumb, but it doesn't matter what year it is. We're all like this. His parents were like this too. JFK was a very refined man. But when he was in private, it wasn't like that.
Aggro.
Everybody get down if you feel me. Put your hands up to the ceiling. Hey, Mr. DJ, somebody read me.
Truly the people's princess. But Jack isn't the only Kennedy to stand out among the 105 living relatives who make up the sprawling Catholic dynasty today. One of the most currently talked about members of the Kennedy clan is, of course, the subject of this video, RFK Jr., who spent most of his childhood in Virginia at the luxurious Hickory Hill estate, which has been depicted as somewhat of an extension of the Kennedy White House. It's where his uncle and father would do a lot of their work when they weren't on Capitol Hill, described by one frequent visitor as a wild mixture of a children's playground, upbeat discotheque, and a political head.
See, upbeat discotheque and all that stuff, right? You think that their parents are different because they're always purported to be like these, like, plastic, fantastic button-down people that are kind of like refined and New England, New England sort of snobby elite. But no, their parents are cartoon characters just like them. And in private, their parents are like cartoon characters. Probably very drunk, probably kind of like, very socialite-y. And to say that RFK is less refined than JFK, I'm not so sure about that. I just don't think there wasn't as many cameras back then, that's all. There was many rumors that he had slept with Marilyn Monroe,
Aggro.
And I mean, yeah. Now he was much more refined, and he had a much greater legacy. But as for like their mannerisms and how silly they are about the same. Nothing's really changed. No, this doesn't work because it breaks sometimes, and if it breaks sometimes, you die. So I'll just manually do this stuff. It's fine. Whatever. It's unfortunate that macro breaks and it'll kill me. It'll full blown get me killed.
All kinds of different animals. This is where RFK Jr. would develop a love of falconry, his father buying him his very first hawk as a way to cheer him up after the 11-year-old injured his leg jumping off a roof. From everything I've read, Hickory Hill was a sort of utopia for the Kennedy children, an oasis for them to escape the media's constant hounding.
Yeah, and when they go there, they're like playing football and they're like drinking and they're like probably doing drugs, honestly. Some of them are probably cheating on their wives and shit. It's like honestly, their parents were just as much cartoon characters. There's this weird thing that everybody thinks that baby boomers are more refined or something like that. They're not as crazy or silly as the TikTok generation. That's not true. In the background, they just didn't have cameras. It's the only difference.
Aggro.
Perfect backdrop to an idealistic childhood that many would be lucky to experience. Tragically.
Yep, and at night he probably drank and fucked his wife in the ass. You know, I'm quite serious. I'm definitely serious. They're refined and they're rich, but you know, they're snobby. They're definitely snobby. But as for not crazy, they're definitely just as crazy as the TikTok generation. No different. They just didn't have cameras being fucking narking on them all the time.
However, that reality wouldn't
Aggro.
CBS News special report on the California primary. Here is Walter Cronkite.
The polls have just closed in California's presidential primary, and a special CBS News survey of voters leaving the polling places indicates that Senator Robert F. Kennedy is leading solidly in the Democratic race with almost 50% of the vote.
At around midnight on June 5th, 1968, presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy Sr. gave a speech at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. He had just officially won the coveted California primary, trouncing his main rival Eugene McCarthy and vowing to continue fighting all the way up to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where an official nominee was to be crowned that August.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win.
Aggro.
Kennedy was fatally shot only a few moments after this clip. The gunman, by the name of Sirhan Sirhan, had ambushed the senator in a kitchen just seconds after he left the podium. As he was shaking hands with voters, multiple shots rang out, and Kennedy slumped to the ground. Chaos ensued as panicked supporters and journalists tried to make sense of what had just occurred.
That was the exact moment that the shots were fired, at least 6 shots according to the reports we have. Fired at Senator Kennedy, Paul Strati, other people on the speaker's platform. Obviously, pandemonium erupted.
Kennedy was rushed to the Good Samaritan Hospital, where he was pronounced dead the following day. This event not only altered the course of American history, but was obviously hugely consequential to the Kennedy family. His 13-year-old son, David, was up late past his bedtime that night, watching the speech alone from a hotel room where he witnessed his father's murder on live television, according to...
That's one of the more colder things I've ever heard.
Reports nobody checked in on him until 3 hours later, being found with the TV still on, unable to speak. Now, it's important to note here that RFK Jr. does not agree with the government's conclusion of events from that night. He once spoke to Sirhan face-to-face in prison and is adamant that he could not have been the only shooter. In fact, he's gone so far as to call the man innocent, even advocating for his parole, which California Governor Gavin Newsom struck down in 2022. Kennedy finds it hard to believe that anyone who reads the autopsy report would come away thinking that Sirhan, who was standing in front of his father, could have fired the shot that killed him, which entered his head from behind his ear at point-blank range. Authorities, of course, have countered this by insisting his head was turned at the time of the gunshots. You see, Kennedy is of the belief that his father was assassinated by a bodyguard standing directly behind him.
Thane Eugene Cesar. You know, I've always suspected that somebody in the car shot Kennedy. And it's weird if that RFK believes that somebody in the bodyguard shot Kennedy.
Man was a CIA operative, and pointing to the fact that there was...
Now that sounds far more probable, though. CIA killed his father. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and his uncle.
no real trial for Sirhan. But that's where we've got to take a pause, because if we were here to discuss all the juicy details of the Kennedy assassinations, this video would be about 6 hours long. There are so many factors that would need to be included in order to paint an accurate picture of what happened, and we've already got enough on our plate for now. But I have to admit, it is enthralling to entertain, and it sure isn't out of character for the CIA to handle a world leader. And I see why RFK Jr. has made the assassinations of his uncle and father such a vital point of his campaign. But speculating on the true killers of RFK and JFK doesn't quite put the general public at risk in the same way his other theories do. And trust me, we'll get to those in a little while. What we do know is that RFK Jr. had flown in from his boarding school to be with his dad the day he died. This was an especially painful tragedy for him, considering how close he always was to his father compared to his mother, Ethel, writing in a 2018 memoir that her exceptional qualities were mainly invisible to me as a child, and noting that from my angle, her love didn't always feel unconditional. Coming from such a politically active family, it's hard for me to imagine he didn't feel pressured to carry on the Kennedy legacy in some capacity, especially in the immediate aftermath of his father's murder. As Vanity Fair writer Joe Hagan pointed out, of all
he looks so weird. They always look so squinty to me, their family. They have like squinted eyes. It's sort of weird. I'll be right back.
The namesake son was considered the most promising dynastic heir. Square-jawed and twinkly-eyed, he looked and sounded the most like his father. Hagan also brought up an old quote from JFK's former roommate at Harvard, Lem Billings, who had become pretty close to the young Kennedy after the assassinations. Everywhere a boy like Bobby looks, he said, there are footprints, all deeper than his own.
I started doing drugs after my dad died.
Okay, to try to cope with the loss.
Oh, who knows? I mean, yeah. I feel honestly that I was born an addict, and that, you know, I would have, no matter what happened, I probably would have gone that way. But who knows?
Me too.
Yep. There's no way to reconstruct that.
RFK Jr. has been incredibly upfront about his drug addiction that began when he was just.
Yep, that's how I feel too. I can't believe you became a living cartoon character and then signed up with the devil. I don't like you. What happened to you?
Just 15, a year after the tragedy. Throughout the rest of his teens and 20s, Kennedy would struggle with a crippling substance addiction that included meth, speedballs, and mostly heroin. His addiction wasn't helped by Billings, who writer David Horowitz said,
back then the drugs weren't pure, but they were real. You know, they weren't fentanyl cut. I'm so jealous of him. There was this wonderful period from about probably, I don't know, 99 until about 2013 where you could still get real drugs. And then by 2013, it was all fentanyl cut. It wasn't even real. None of the drugs were real. None of the drugs on the streets are real. It's all fentanyl now. It's stupid. They cut off the supply of the methamphetamine. And you can get cocaine. You definitely can. You can get pure cocaine in Miami and stuff. You still can. But that's because the cartels don't cut the way that like other dealers do. I mean, they do. They do. But they don't cut the same way, you know. They want their repeat business, so they'll still, like, in the club cocaine scene, that those drugs will still probably be something like 50%, you know. But in the ghetto, You're getting fentanyl cut. Doesn't matter what you buy. Ooh, I can make my chest piece finally. That's going to be a DPS upgrade. A big one. So I can finally make my chest, which is super good. I need this. Oh, no, I can't. I'm short a light hide. That's all right. Damn it.
And accompany Kennedy on trips to shady areas of Harlem to score heroin. In his 1984 book, The Kennedys, an American Drama, Horowitz also includes testimony from a woman named Jennifer Jacobson, who dated Kennedy's cousin Chris while the boys were in college. Of the young men's addiction, she stated, Christopher and Bobby, RFK Jr., liked heroin, but they'd settle for a cupful of Valium, some Percodins, or whatever else was there. Drugs were obsessive. There was a desperate need to escape. Most of us who do dope just want to leave our lives
what's my drug of choice? Well, what do you have?
Behind. You got the feeling that whatever they said, they wanted to leave their whole ancestry behind. A 1984 edition of Playboy magazine also touched on this as well, describing how Bobby, Chris, and David would sometimes panhandle for money at Grand Central Station to buy drugs. David reportedly telling the magazine it was great just being ordinary people and not Kennedys. Playboy also reported that it was Bobby who introduced his younger brother David to heroin. According to RFK Jr. biographer Jerry Oppenheimer, Kennedy not only force-fed LSD to his pet parakeet growing up, but he also forced David to trip on the psychedelic mescaline. Oppenheimer writes that when David started hallucinating, he became convinced that his brother was dying in front of him, screaming, "You're dying just like Daddy." On April 25th, 1984, David Kennedy would be found dead of a drug overdose in a Palm Beach hotel.
I did not know this. I had no idea his brother overdosed. I had no idea. I need materials to start a fire. Yeah, I'm gonna finally buy them. I've got enough room. What's that? It's salt. I'll need salt. I will need coarse thread. And I need wood. You don't sell it? No, you don't. How do you not sell wood? It's so stupid. Why? Alright, fine.
28 years old. This was also soon after the family had reportedly turned on David for airing out their dirty laundry to the media, according to a recent Vanity Fair piece. RFK Jr. himself suffered an overdose in September 1983, becoming violently sick in an airplane restroom and being charged with 1 count of heroin possession in South Carolina, garnering national headlines considering Kennedy was the assistant Manhattan district attorney at the time, despite failing the bar twice. After 15 years of on and off using, this was a pivotal moment in the 29-year-old's life, attempting to move past these dark times by going to rehab and spending his 1,500 hours of court-mandated community service volunteering at an environmental group called the National Resources Defense Council. This is where Kennedy would finally begin to feel a sense of purpose. For once in his life, he actually found fulfillment in holding big polluters accountable. Working pro bono for a time, Kennedy fought to clean up lakes and riverways by shining a spotlight on illegal dumping. Ironic, and advocating on behalf of Native Americans fighting for the conservation of their land, even being arrested with actress Daryl Hannah in 2013 for opposing the Keystone Pipeline, which is in stark contrast to potentially lying about being attacked by an indigenous tribe in 1976. Emphasis on it potentially, because there really is no way for me to officially verify this next claim other than just telling you who said what. According to what Kennedy told journalists many decades ago, he and his cousin Chris were whitewashing water rafting when they were ambushed by a tribe. He says an arrow pierced one of their canteens and narrowly missed his cousin's leg. As Kennedy scrambled to find more arrows to retaliate with, Chris heroically pulled out a random stick of dynamite that I guess he just had on him conveniently, lighting the stick and throwing it at the tribe. It blew, shooting water 30 feet in the air and sending their attackers running for the hills. Only, as the Huffington Post recently put it, this recollection appears to be wildly exaggerated or entirely made up, comparing Kennedy's story to a similar but less cinematic incident from Chris's 2005 memoir, where Chris wrote of arrows being shot in their general direction by a drunken tribe on the shore, which is only a little less grandiose than fighting back with explosive materials like Looney Tunes. But even Chris's recollection is up for debate. See, Huffington Post quoted another one of Bobby's friends, Blake Fleetwood, who claimed to be on the trip as well, telling the Washington Post in 1984 that the water was calm all day and no such attack ever occurred, going on the record all the way back then that Kennedy's claim was just fantasy. Strangely, for whatever reason, the Kennedy campaign has still not responded to questions from the Huffington Post. Somehow, though, this isn't even the wildest story to come out of Kennedy's surreal fever dream of a personal life. No, not even close. Kennedy's arsenal doesn't stop at just dynamite, evidently. No, it turns out he also likes to use chainsaws to decapitate beached whales. This fun little tidbit comes from his own daughter, Kick Kennedy, who recently told Town and Country magazine that when she was a kid, she remembers her father learning of a whale that had washed up nearby, slicing off its head and bungee cording it to the roof of the minivan before taking it back to their home in New York, which was
so
5
stupid.
hours away, recalling how every time we accelerated on the highway, whale juice would pour into the windows of the car, and it was just the rankest thing on the planet. We had plastic bags over our heads with mouth holes cut out, and people on the highway were...
Yeah, see, I told my Dear Blood story, right? Yeah, it's that sort of thing that totals your car.
Giving us the finger, but that was just normal day-to-day stuff for us. Normal day-to-day stuff? What the fuck is this family? I mean, if this is just now coming to light, imagine what all we still have yet to learn about. Regardless, Kennedy's environmental activism throughout the 1980s is what largely legitimized him, if you ask Alex Boyle, a student who worked with the young lawyer on several projects at Riverkeeper, a patrol group that monitored and reported polluters on the Hudson River, as written in the New Yorker, which also noted that Kennedy began a lucrative speaking career around this time. Throughout the late 80s and 90s, Kennedy was paid 6 figures to travel around the United States, emphasizing the importance of environmental protection. He'd attend all kinds of charity events and fundraisers well into the 2000s, which he documented extensively in his own personal diary. But mind you, these weren't the only stories he'd record in that diary.
In 1994, you married Mary Kathleen Richardson. According to reports, it said that she had found a personal journal of yours where you had written down various encounters, sexual encounters with 37 different women. And that possibly triggered her to take her own life. Would you care to comment on that at all?
Yeah. What Vlad is talking about here is a 2013 report from the New York Post, which revealed Kennedy's habit of documenting the names of his many mistresses in a journal, referring to his greatest defect being his lust demons. This diary was discovered by his late wife, Mary Richardson, who also found additional messages of him sexting other women in his phone, according to what a friend told the New Yorker. The diary depicted encounters with over 30 different women in 2001.
Yeah. Kennedy's, they're like a target. They're like a target. They're like a target. They're like a target for women. Like the Kennedys, I don't understand it. It's something about money and prestige. But women pursued the Kennedys pretty bad.
Using vague terminology along with a numerical system that corresponded with different sex acts. The number 10, for example, meant intercourse. The Post reported that 16 of the women named were marked with 10s. Kennedy was traveling all over the continent at the time and recorded a 2, a 3, and a 10 all on the same day in November while attending a celebrity charity event. One woman was named 22 times, meeting up with her 13 days in a row, according to the entries. He also seems to to use the word mugged to say he was seduced by these women, making himself out to be a victim of sorts, as the post notes, when he writes of being mugged on his way home from a dinner with Leonardo DiCaprio. One entry reads, "I narrowly escaped being mugged by a double team of 2 women. It was tempting, but I prayed, and God gave me the strength to say no." Another entry, dated shortly after September 11th, 2001.
I could see having that issue, yeah. Oh, no. Wait, I went to go get fire making tools, and I didn't get them. God damn it. I got wood, but not the flint and tinder.
States. Despite the terrible things happening in the world, my life is great. So I've been looking for ways to screw it up. I'm like Adam and live in Eden, and I can have everything but the fruit. But the fruit is all I want. He would mark the days he wasn't unfaithful with the word victory and would tell himself he needed to avoid the company.
He's like, oh my God, it gets that bad when you're a Kennedy. Like every day there's some girl trying to slide into your DMs or whatever. It's insane. And you're in days that they don't actually conquer you, it's a victory. Oh my God.
It's their charms. Be humble like a monk. Keep your hands to yourself. Avert your eyes. Throughout most of the infidelity described here, Kennedy's wife of 7 years, Mary, was at home pregnant with their 4th child, which is probably why, when confronted by the media about the diary in 2013, Kennedy seemed so taken aback. The Post says he sat in stunned silence for 6 whole seconds before finally retorting, "I don't think there is any way you could have a diary or journal of mine from 2001. I don't have any comment on it. I have no diary from 2001. Before, of course, admitting the diary was real to DJ Vlad here a decade later.
The journal that you're talking about is called your 5th step. It was part of my, my recovery, and I kept that 5th step in a safe. She put a lot of effort into getting that safe open and then handing that to her sisters with instruction that if anything happened to her, it should be published in the press.
Kennedy's rampant infidelity caused a severe rift in his marriage. The New Yorker described Mary's inability to cope with his sex addiction, as one friend told the publication that Mary believed if he had only gone back into recovery, then maybe their marriage would have...
Yeah, it's so weird that it gets that bad. After a few months after the first time she ever discovered he probably cheated, she realized that he's cheating every single day, and then she looks up and she realizes that he's been cheating every day since they've been married, and I just can't imagine being able to continue the marriage at that point. I'd be like, you just weren't even in this marriage. Why did you do this? You weren't in this marriage or whatever.
Fortunately,
cheating is so dumb. I have this view of the world that about every 7 years, all of the molecules and all the particles in your body, all the cells in your body are completely different than they were 7 years before. They have like a design that they have, but like you're still like genetically and like cell-wise, not genetics, cell-wise, you are like a completely different like thing. And so this idea of dating somebody for longer than I think 7 or 10 years, unless you want to settle down and you're just happy together, there's never any issues, and you're just long term, that's where you arrive at naturally. But I mean, like overall, it's odd, I think, that humans plan to be in relationships longer than 7 to 10 years. By that point, you're a completely different fucking person. You probably eat different food. You probably watch different television shows. You probably like read different books. You probably think different things about politics. You might think that something, you might have had a very sea change about something in your job life or your personal life or your professional career life that has just totally changed you as a person. Maybe you have kids now. Maybe you don't have kids now, and you're unhappy. 7 to 10 years is enough time, I think, for the average relationship. It's dumb to put like some kind of expiration date on a relationship. That's impossible. But I think like if you're not like head over heels happy 10 years later, I don't think it should be this terrible thing that these people guilt themselves over for just ending a relationship. I think it's fine.
Not get better, and they filed for divorce in 2010. During the proceedings, Mary tragically took her own life.
Oh my God, his wife killed herself.
Kennedy, as it was reported, had been attempting to get full custody of them.
Well, you were sleeping with a different woman every single day. I mean, you kept a journal of it, probably so you could brag to her.
Kids. And a leaked affidavit from him seemed to depict Mary as an abusive alcoholic who had...
I've got to shut my door. It's too cold in here. I'll be right back.
Personality disorder. Mary's family, though, strongly rebukes this depiction and the diagnosis, telling Newsweek in 2012 that the affidavit, which Mary repudiated at the time, is full of vindictive lies. This latest piling on is proof perfect of the unbelievable emotional and psychological abuse that Mary endured during the last years of her life, and now in death. The false claim that Mary suffered from BPD is also an insult to those who do struggle with this serious mental illness. According to writer Maureen Callahan, Kennedy had approached Mary's therapist at one point, asking her to be diagnosed as mentally ill. The therapist refused and reportedly told him, "Your wife isn't mentally ill. She is angry and depressed, but she is not ill." The New Yorker also stated that although Mary's family wanted her remains to be buried near her home in Westchester, Kennedy insisted she be buried at the Kennedy plot in Cape Cod. Mary's family sued, but Kennedy ultimately won, denying his...
Oh my God, how did you outrule her parents to put her interned? See these rich people and their fucking weird lives.
Aggro.
Wife's grieving family their final request for their loved one. In one particularly transparent entry, Kennedy wrote, "After Daddy died, I struggled to be a grown-up.
What grown man says daddy? Daddy? Mommy, daddy. Mommy and daddy. They used to make fun of this on The Simpsons, like rich people that call their parents mommy and daddy. Mommy and daddy.
Aggro.
Who the fuck talks like that when they're an adult? Hey, daddy. Fucking weird.
He was watching me from heaven. Every time I was afflicted with sexual thoughts, I felt a failure. I hated myself. I began to lie, to make up a character who was the hero and leader that I wished I was." Later writing, "I have been given everything that I coveted. A beautiful wife and kids and loving family, wealth, education, good health, and..."
Yep, you've been given it all. Must be nice. Must be nice.
"A job I love, yet always on the lookout for something I can't have. I want it all. No matter how much I have, I want more."
Aggro.
Kennedy isn't the only person in this story, though, who's kept a diary. Eliza Cooney began babysitting for the Kennedys at the age of 23, and in a diary of her own recently obtained by Vanity Fair, Cooney described multiple unwanted sexual encounters with the 44-year-old Kennedy. The first entry, dated November 7th, 1998, reads, "From everything everybody says about the Kennedys, plus their babysitters, they had me worried. Like I have to watch out, be careful. And the other night in the kitchen with Murray, a volunteer for Riverkeeper, I could have sworn Kennedy was touching my leg and hand. It seemed like he thought I was somebody else or wasn't paying attention. Like he would come to every once in a while and snap out of it, or I would move away. It was like he was on something, or really tired, or was missing Mary, or was testing me. Cooney told Vanity Fair that in the back of her mind, she was hoping it wasn't what it actually was. Unfortunately, though, this was not a one-off occurrence. Just a few weeks after this entry, Vanity Fair reports that Cooney discovered Kennedy standing in her bedroom. The diary, that contained intimate details about her relationship with her boyfriend, was opened on the bed. Kennedy, shirtless, asked if she could rub lotion on his back, the magazine reports. She obliged reluctantly, but soon stopped recording these events in her diary out of fear that he would read them. The third and most horrifying encounter, though, happened a few months later in Kennedy's kitchen, where Cooney says that
I couldn't keep a diary. What? Who has that kind of time?
She was cornered from behind. As written in Vanity Fair, Kennedy came up behind her, blocked her inside the room, and began groping her, putting his hands on her hips and sliding them up along her ribcage and breasts. Finally, being interrupted by a worker who reportedly told Kennedy something to the effect of, "Don't do anything I wouldn't do," according to Cooney. You would naturally expect a candidate running for the highest office in the land to address such serious allegations head on, and you would hope that if they were truly innocent of what was being alleged, they would rush to vehemently deny it across the board. But Kennedy hasn't done this. Sure, he's addressed it because he has to, but his response hasn't done much to actually put normal people at ease. If his goal was to exonerate himself of the claims being made against him, I'm gonna say he kind of failed that little mission.
Listen, I've said this from the beginning. I am not a church boy. I had a very, very rambunctious youth.
I'm sorry, but youth? Buddy, you were a few years away from qualifying for a full AARP membership. Also, the word rambunctious should never appear anywhere near your response to sexual assault allegations. Why'd you have to throw that in?
I said in my announcement speech that if I have so many skeletons in my closet that if they could all vote, I could run for king of the world.
And to cap off his insane ramblings with "I am who I am" is just the cherry on top.
I am who I am.
You're talking there about the nanny situation. I mean, I do have to ask her. I mean, are you denying it or not?
I'm not going to comment on it.
All right.
Well, I guess RFK Jr. is innocent after all, guys. Case closed. As we all know, innocent people always directly refuse to comment on something they didn't do. If you're being accused of a serious crime that you absolutely 100% did not commit, the correct move is to obviously go out of your way to say that you are not commenting on it. But if that doesn't say enough, reports quickly came out that he had actually texted Cooney an apology where he claims to have not remembered the events she described, but is sincerely sorry for any harm he may have caused her. Obviously, Cooney hasn't accepted this. It's a non-apology, or as she put it, disingenuous and arrogant. Telling the Washington Post, "I'm not sure how somebody has a true apology for something that they don't admit to recalling. I didn't get a sense of remorse." And I also just have to say, really not what Kennedy's reputation needed after it had just been reported that he went on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane with his family to go fossil hunt.
So if I turn 60, I can just turn the SSF off, I think. Or I don't know, maybe I can't. Maybe not. I guess I probably can't.
Thought this guy was going to stand up to the deep state or whatever when he's first of all a Kennedy and has also hung out with the deep state. This guy flew with Ghislaine Maxwell, dude, but not to as he does for every question. Kennedy, of course, had a marvelous explanation locked and loaded when pressed by Andrew Schultz.
Okay, but give the context obviously to the Epstein thing, because you basically got
okay,
ahead
so
of the...
what I run into everybody in New York. I mean, I knew Harvey Weinstein, I knew Roger Ailes, I knew O.J. Simpson came to my house, Bill Cosby came to my house.
You also knew good people.
You seem to really know a lot of rapists.
Like, hey man, you know you didn't have to tell us any of that, right? I mean, on one hand, I see why some people might appreciate a politician being so open and honest about the skeletons in their closet, you know, the ones that could elect him king of Earth, but I'm not sure how much that transparency actually helps him in this case. Happily telling millions of people that you kicked it with the Avengers of murder and sex crimes is not exactly the part of your past you want to emphasize when you're running for president. The wildest part is he's not even the only presidential candidate this year who once palled around with Epstein, but you can learn more about that in my other videos. If anything, it's such a bizarre answer. It just kind of proves his point that maybe he did have part of his brain eaten by a worm. I know people like to jokingly accuse each other of having brain worms on Twitter.